Pastor George Borghardt, and this is another Higher Things video short. What's the Great Commandment? That's the subject of today's Higher Things video short. Matthew 22, this week's gospel. What is the Great Commandment? The lawyer testing Jesus with the question that we ask ourselves all the time. What commandment means most to us? And generally speaking, that is murder and adultery. When we want to justify ourselves, we go to those things that are universally bad. I'm not such a bad person. It's not like I murdered or cheated on my spouse. Those are evil even to the world. 96% of Americans polled believe that adultery is wrong, and everybody believes that you shouldn't kill somebody else. Now, other commandments do rank high too. Seventh commandment, not stealing. Nobody wants to get between us and our stuff. We care about the eighth commandment when somebody hurts our reputation. Parents, who as parents don't like the fourth commandment? I do. After that, though, you'll notice that missing are all the commandments of the first table. You see, those are the commandments. When we think about ourselves, we think about 6, 5. We worry about the sexual sins and hate. We don't normally think about whether we love God with our whole heart or not. And in so doing, we break the first commandment. The great and first commandment is the first table of the law. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, your mind, and your soul. So we should love God with our whole heart. We should cherish his name and call upon it in every prayer, praise, and give thanks. We should hold his name sacred. We should cherish the preaching in his name, his Sabbath day. We should be around the Lord's gifts, and not because we have to, but because we get to. The first table of the law is the law that we always forget because, well, to look at the first table of the law is to look at our relationship with God, which is all messed up. We are so turned inward that we run to the second table to gauge how we are doing without ever looking at the first. The second table is the second, close second, says Jesus. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. So love God with all you are. Love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets. And so to look at the commandments, the two commandments, is to look at Jesus as saving us. His keeping of the law for us. His keeping of the commandments for us. The law hangs on Jesus. The law dies with Jesus. The law that would be hung on you for you to do, to love God with your whole heart and to love your neighbor as yourself, hangs on Christ. He rescues you from it. He saves you from your sins. You're playing games with the commandments and justifying yourself. He saves you from that. And he gives you life everlasting. Life spent loving others as you have been loved. Putting mom and dad first and loving, not hating, not hurting or harming our neighbor, leading a pure and decent life in what we say and do, not stealing, and not coveting, and building people's reputations up. Oh, and the first table too, don't forget that. Loving God with all you are. You do that because the law hung on Jesus first. And in him, you do the law. Apart from him, you don't. In him, you are justified, freed from the law's condemnations. In him, you are forgiven. The law hangs on Jesus first. Then the law is gift to you. Love God with all you are. Love your neighbor as yourself. These are the great first and second commandments. On this hang all the law and the prophets. I'm Pastor George Borghardt, and this has been another Higher Things video short.